Hello. Client R, who I will be presenting to you today, has become a client at BCPS while at Berks County Jail. R is a 45-year-old Caucasian male. He became a client through BCPS, Berks Connections, when at Berks County Jail System. His level of risk score, or the LSI score, was low enough for him to be transferred down to the Community Reentry Center, or the CRC, after serving his 2-year sentence for retail theft, or RT. After being moved to the CRC, his probation officer mandated Ready to Succeed classes. They're employment classes for him to be discharged, which is part of his discharge plan. While at the CRC, he obtained his GED. He kept a valid driver's license, which is part of his mandated employment plan. He has a car which has a safety vehicle license, and he has a permanent housing situation for his discharge plan. While we were working with R, we engaged him using different skills as a social worker. I started where client R was. We moved in a positive pace towards a impacting change. I actively listened to him and what he wanted to do with his goals and impacted him towards his change. I used summarizing to help him actively listen to him and what he wanted to do and how the classes went and what he wanted to do and how that was going to impact him. So I summarized each individual classes to him. I also used reflective listening. So while we were engaging together, we would also, what he was talking to me and what he would be saying, I would definitely reflect back to him and make sure I was understanding what he was giving back to me. I'd ask open-ended questions just to make sure, I was furthering understanding with him what he really was going through and just making sure I was getting the full understanding of what was happening with R. I clarified with him, and I also used validation to make sure that I was getting the true understanding of what was happening with R during his time at the CRC. Oftentimes, client R would be angry, or he wouldn't fully express his emotions with me, so I used silence to allow him the opportunity to collect himself and truly get to the root of the problem and allow himself the opportunity to clear his head and share with me what he wanted to say. So for the assessment phase, I had an employment assessment, and that is where I would have the opportunity to have time to interview R, and I went over the employment sheet, which is here. I would ask him a few questions related to his employment, when he was expected to be released, address when he would be released, and this is for the macro phase. It was just things like, do you have a state ID? Do you have a social security card? Things that he would need for employment. This is things that would encourage him to give additional tools and support for finding a job and be able to, keep that momentum moving in a positive direction. For the mezzo interventions, we wanted him to be able to successfully participate in the group setting. So his goal that he told me was that he wanted to have personal growth while in the group setting. So instead of being a class clown, he decided that he wanted to actually be able to, ask questions and, be along with his peers in a setting which he thought would be, a thriving environment for him. So for the macro phase, he decided that he wanted to use his tools to a supportive atmosphere. We have Chaplain Paul, who gives out clothing, and he also does bus passes, and through us we also can give them bus passes when they're out. He can give money and food, different support systems that we have through the macro phase, just some things to keep him in the positive momentum and just keep him on track while at the CRC and just moving in a positive direction. Some of the strengths that R demonstrated to us was that he wanted to really get his GED while there, And he did. He obtained his GED. He also used his family support system, and he really did have a positive attitude while learning at the CRC. So he also used those strengths to develop that continuing momentum of change. So he saw that forward motion and decided that he was going to strive for that. And so he used all those strengths to try to make that momentum a forward momentum for him. And lastly is diversity. While he is an inmate at the CRC, it is a diverse population to be working with. One of the classes talks about how while they're applying for jobs, that they can have the opportunity to show their employers that they are bondable, meaning that they have the opportunity to have basically an insurance policy on them. If their background is maybe sketchy, or that they feel that they need to, just have some extra insurance on them, that they can have that a liability for them. And he has taken that opportunity to say, I am marketable, and that I am an inmate. I do have a felony charge, but this is what I can give to you, knowing that I am a diverse population. And so he has used this to be a productive member of society, and he knows that getting his GED and this has laid the foundation for him to get the tools to being a successful member of society. For the planning phase, we have used, when I have worked with R, he has mentioned to me that he wanted to break his goals into short-term and long-term. And so what we had decided to do, and what he wanted to do, was break them up into two major groups. So for his short-term goals, I had explained to him what I wanted to do was go over the process while being at the CRC, since his probation officer had mandated the Ready to Succeed classes. So I'm going to explain the process that he had to go through. First, he had to enter into resume writing, and he had to complete and finish his resume in whole. So what we do is we give him a resume worksheet, which he has to complete in full. He has to enter in all the information in full, explaining where he has worked in his past, some company names, titles, what he's held, how long, information like that. And the next thing we go over is his employment goals, and it covers three main things. It establishes his strengths, his weaknesses, and three main goals he would like to obtain while at the CRC. Some of the next things he has to do is he gets homework. We give him a sample application. It's just designed to help him understand that this is what you're supposed to be doing while at the CRC, and it just helps them have homework and goals and to keep on track. Then we do the job assessment, which I go over, and what it is, it's just a worksheet. It gets me to understand what educational background, jobs that they've had in the past, and things that I can properly match them with. So if they've had a DUI in the past, I know that they cannot be doing truck driver work, things like that. After they do enter in the 4-week class for the resume, after doing the resume writing, they then will need to have entered into the Ready to Succeed classes. So then they will have a portfolio given to them with a pocket resume. They will have to complete the pocket resume in order to be approved for work for furloughs. They need to complete all homework assignments, and they will also need to have be having one-on-one meetings with me. After that, if they do not complete homework assignments, they will have to redo one of the classes that they have missed. Then they come weekly meetings with me, and then that means that they will be waiting for approval. And in that time, they just have to come and be reviewed for how they're either achieving those goals or how they need to be striving to meet those goals. So after we had talked about that, I had helped him break his goals into short-term and long-term goals. And as you can see, he had come up with being engaged in the employment sessions, participating in a group, finalizing the resume, completing his homework on time, and asking questions. So all these things needed to be included for the employment furloughs. So the long-term goals that R has is actively looking for meaningful employment, planning for employment furloughs, and promote the hidden market. So his hidden market is that he has family and friends that are still his support system. So this means that he can promote himself to those friends and family and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Is there somewhere that you know, or is your place of employment looking that I could possibly find a job there? I could be a janitor, I could be somebody for the trash or something like that. So he has a strong family support system to which he could have the hidden market. So we had moved in a positive direction with his short-term and long-term goals. For the action steps, we had entered him into the resume writing, and he completed his resume writing, and it is in for submission. He completed it with the efforts, and he strived off of that. Once he completed it, I was able to then put him into the classes for Ready to Succeed. So then we went over the job assessment form, which we're doing now for him. I go over this worksheet with him. It's just, again, the GED, do you have any formal training, certifications, things that I just need to know to find him a better placement for a job. Those are the action steps we took to get him for the long-term supports, just getting him on track for the Ready to Succeed classes. So just preparing him for time management for the portfolio. We gave him a better trackment sheet, just to keep in track of where he'll be, times and places to better track his times for where he goes out for employment furloughs, so he can be better prepared in the long run to establish, his long-term goals of where he'll be and to better plan for when he does go for employment furloughs. So the interventions that I did use with R was motivational interviewing. Since he is ambivalent about finding work, he does have a strong sense of the future. It's just that he knows that while having a record, it is hard to find a job, but he also still feels strongly motivated. So we did, some soul searching with that. So I was able to help him explore the indifference, and we were able to collaborate the efforts towards his goals. And we were able to sort through the short-term and the long-term goals, knowing that we had to go through these steps, to go through the jail staff, to be employed, to go through the employment furloughs. So he was able to see the small changes as big goals and know that through slow motivation that he could make bigger strides to successfully find a job that was meaningful for him. I also used educational attachment, and while R was at the CRC, he was able to obtain his GED. And that relationship between the GED and the early childhood education that he experienced as a child shows high crime rates. And that educational attachment helps to increase the likelihood that a person will be able to obtain the knowledge and skills necessary to maintain a job and to be a permanent and productive member in society. So since he was lacking education as a child from either his parents, the school systems, and things like that, I saw that while he was at the CRC, he did get that sense of, the schooling and better skills productions and things like that. So he was able to succeed in the sense that he was able to fill the GED. He was able to gain skills like the Ready to Succeed classes, showing him how to do the resume, how to gain proper mock interviewing skills, things that he was needing and lacking from the outside world that he got from the CRC, and now will be able to give back to the community in the sense that he will be now a working member of society. So through the resume classes, the Ready to Succeed classes, the one-on-one employment assessment with me, and then through the employment furloughs and going out and doing the job interviews, he will be able to give back through these slow strides, and he will be able to be a working community member again. For the evaluation sessions, not only did the jail staff, but the BCPS comes together and meets with R for the progression of his goals and his furlough employments, and we sit down and we review how he's coming together for his reviews and how he's doing with his goals and how he's met them and how he's falling short of them and how we're going to be able to get him up to the goals. I do the employment furloughs by myself, and then I bring it to the group. So I am able to then evaluate, he's done this, this, and this, and he's gone to place A, B, and C to, he hasn't been successful there, but now he's going to do this instead. So we evaluate every goal and every employment furlough. So he's doing very well, and once he is released, whether or not he does have a job or not, he can meet with me up to a 3-year release status. And termination. After R is released for furloughs, I can still case management on his employment visits. So he does not get terminated as far as the classes' sake. He's done with the classes, but he still meets with me for the employment visits. He also has the ability to, whether he's on work release, I do monthly checks to see how the work release is going and see if that's still pending, or if the job wasn't meant for him, he can still come back to me and we can still work on work release programs and other job searches that I still have. The other thing that I have is once he is released, whether he has a work release or not, I'm still able to work with R up to 3 years and help him with his basic employment needs and just help him regardless of if he has employment or not. And once the other case managers who don't do employment, he then gets sent to me, and I make an employment visit down at the office in the courthouse. I make an employment visit with him before he is released, and I make a date with him to then go over what the other options are that he has up to 3 years, and if he makes it or not, if he comes to the visit or not, I still have made the option for him to come back and visit me, so that way we can work on the employment or not. So that is up to him whether or not he chooses to terminate that process with me. So I leave it up to him, and I explain that to him, that he has up to 3 years to call me. I give him my card, and we explain that to him through that process. So that is R, and if there's any questions, let me know, and have a good one.